Deleted session. February 17, 1981. Now, generally speaking, Robert enjoys our sessions and considers them with a natural zest. This applies again, generally speaking, whether or not actual book dictation is involved. Difficulties arise, however, in book dictation on those occasions when he becomes too heavy-handed and worries about responsibility of helping to solve the world's problems, about his or my capacities in that regard, and when he considers the possible and various objections that any given subject matter might activate on the part of any given group of people. So if the area becomes too sensitive, we let dictation go for a while. Sometimes I insert the particular material in your private sessions first of all, so that he becomes somewhat acclimated to it. The only other times there is any such difficulty also involve responsibility, when he concentrates upon his responsibility to hold the sessions. That is, when he focuses upon need, function, or utility as separate from other issues involved. Such feelings can then, for a while, override his natural inclinations and his natural enjoyment and his natural excitement with which he otherwise views our sessions. He would not have had the sessions to begin with over this period of time for your sake alone, or even for your sake primarily. They simply would have petered out. You do have a large role to play, however, and I will go into that more clearly along with the way that you might have sometimes misread some of your own attitudes. Nothing, however, would have kept him at the sessions for this amount of time unless he wanted them. They are also natural rhythms, as I have mentioned, and it is understandable enough to take breaks now and then whether or not you even understand why you want them. When you are concentrating upon responsibility, however, then each lapse becomes a lapse from responsible action and complicates the inner spontaneous rhythm that to a large degree is automatically maintained. Use your abilities, a fine idea, a good policy, an excellent course, but not when it is considered a commandment. Robert's abilities, and your own, for that matter, came to light because they are natural characteristics of your beings. They bring you enjoyment, fulfillment, understanding, excitement, discovery. Now that can be said of your painting and of Robert's poetry. Robert writes poetry by himself, but left alone enjoys reading it later to others. In a strange fashion, he does not feel a responsibility to write poetry. He doesn't use the ability because he thinks that he should. In fact, sometimes he writes poetry when he thinks that he should not be doing so, but instead doing something more responsible. Now, basically, he has the sessions because he enjoys them, and so do you. On top of that, however, the whole idea of responsibility has played an over-heavy hand, and it is this idea of responsibility overplayed that is to a large degree responsible for the idealized image of the public person with which Robert has unsuccessfully tried to compete. It seems to him as if he would, if he were using all of his abilities as he should, be a public figure. He would also be far more capable of helping people solve their problems through some kind of therapeutic framework. He would see to it that as many persons as possible had the opportunity to see a session, and he would furthermore also be developing his own psychic experience at a far greater rate. Against that kind of image, he feels inferior. You had some time ago an old newspaper article you had saved on the dangers of using the words should or would too often, and there is perhaps nothing else you could do that is as detrimental to the true development of the natural self. Part of the difficulty in what Ruber thinks of as the development of his abilities, or the more frequent insertion of inspiration work of his own, is the very fact that he feels so responsible to so thusly perform. All of these issues are highly important. The idea of responsibility, as described here, lacks creativity, hampers natural psychic and physical flow. I should be doing thus and so. What do I like to do? What do I feel like doing? What makes me feel good? Those questions are far more pertinent. When you want to do something truly, there are usually few real impediments. Desire flows freely into action. All books and sessions are primarily a celebration of life, not a justification of it, or an excuse or apology for the conditions of physical reality. Ruber's own material of late is excellent and will help enlarge the picture. It came spontaneously and clearly. His body has been attempting to relax when he feels like so doing. Then, such activity or lack of it is precisely what is needed at the time, and he need not feel that he should be doing something else. I will go into the question of Ruber's attitude toward me very shortly, as per your own question in a note. There is some application there. But the larger one applies to his own ideas of what someone in his position should be doing, and the idealized image is partially a construct to which you also added details unwittingly in the past. If you would remember natural selves and your own characteristics, you would have a much better, clearer idea of what to realistically expect from yourselves, and you would let other ideas go when they conflict with your own quite definite inclinations. The full potentials of Ruber's abilities and of our work will result from following the natural contours of your beings. From those resources, your own individual and joint problems can also be eradicated. An organization is obviously not characteristic of two people who are very largely loners. Any kind of extensive public life cannot be reasonably expected from two people who value privacy to the extent that you both do. This does not mean, again, that black and white thinking is not involved. Ruber has been straining to live up to an unreasonable image, sometimes with your unwitting assistance, an attempt that certainly has made him drag his feet, and one that is exhausting. Again, the old feelings about spontaneity of course apply. So read this session remembering other ones. I have myself in the past given a good deal of information about the conflicts that can arise when Ruber overemphasizes the idea of work as opposed to creativity. Most people work so many hours, then, relatively speaking, follow their pleasures to whatever extent possible. Because you have no set hours in that regard, Ruber has filled all of them with I should do this, or I should be doing that, or what should I be doing now? And that alone lacks creative flow. It is further inhibited if that sense of responsibility is weighted to solving the problems of the world or of correspondence, or when such an attempt is allowed to tinge any book sessions. I am not here referring to mass events, which was indeed directed toward the condition of the world, but to matters, whatever they may be, where Ruber feels a responsibility on his part for me to dictate specific material that might answer questions he thinks scientists or others might have in mind about any given subject matter. For I wrote from a different viewpoint, and our material is of course not to be dictated in any important way by the statement of your official knowledge at any given time. It is to rise beyond such categories. It is to present a larger dramatic framework, which then can be used to put the world together in a different fashion for those who want to do so. In that regard, Ruber's material is correct. Simply by being itself, all material serves its purpose, and its purpose is multitudinous. Remember what I told you some time ago, though you have made excellent strides in that regard. Apropos natural man, in contrast to what you may think you should be doing, in terms of any idealized self with characteristics that are not your own. End of station. Now Ruber had the station because he spontaneously felt like having it, and my heartiest regards to both of you. Ralph said, "Thank you very much," says.